Hi, greetings. My name is uh, Dr. Mira Senko Kwali here at As Life Coaching Ministries. And y'all have to excuse me. I just got out the shower and the tub. And what happened was I got some soap in my eyes today. So my eyes are a little waterish. So that's the deal that's going on. And my heart is kind of waterish, but I don't. Anyway, so that's another story. We'll talk about. That's what this video is going to be certainly about today. Okay, now greetings, everybody. I hope that many of us. I have yes, malarious. Okay, I hope that many of us are compelled to have a certain energy today. Well, first, let me share this with you. What I left out is that I tell you, I told you I was Dr. Mira Senko Kwali, right? The second thing I want to say to you is that my business is called As Life Coaching Ministries. And so what I'm doing is I'm running Facebook and YouTube all at the same damn time, right? I'm trying to get my YouTube following up as well as getting more people to come to my lives, which I normally you invite people, but I don't necessarily want to do that. But you're welcome to invite people. So any rate, so last night or this morning, I should say, because I went to bed probably about 5:30, close to 6-ish this morning. And my king and I were actually looking at a whole bunch of Michael Jackson documentaries. And this is not going to be about Michael Jackson, so don't get it twisted. But I have to explain to you where my thought process was going in this direction. Okay. So as I began, we were watching this, and I was looking at Michael Jackson's children, and most likely, like you all, I was like, why does these children have blonde hair? Those are not really his children. Why is he playing blase, blase? And as I began to start looking at the children a lot more, and of course they're older, especially that third one, I'm gonna get this out the way. And I was like, wow, my king was like, the little boy, Blanket or whatever, looks just like him. And I really looked at him. I was like, wow, yeah. And so he did say it was about a black woman. And so some of the other children, it looked like that their hair was dyed when they was a certain age, because you could see the roots. Okay, but I'm off of that subject. So I was traumatized. I know y'all thinking, y'all laughing at me, but I was sincerely traumatized in looking at that video because I didn't really realize how much the little boy looks just like him. And then I started seeing certain pictures, and then I began to do research, and we just was like, wow, we had a different image of that situation. Anyway, so I went to bed with that thought. So I had to share that with you all so y'all could understand. I went to bed with that thought. And I began to start thinking about my mother, because I often think about my mother every day. Sometimes I always do a question after I wake up, because I always hear a voice telling me to get up, usually different quotes of telling me to get up, you little lazy lima bean, you're wasting your day away, you got things to accomplish, you got things to do. My mother's always like that. When she was physically in the physical walking around, she would always tell me, don't sleep your life away. I'm telling you, that was her number one statement. Don't sleep your life away. No matter what was going on in my life, she would always come in there. I don't care if I was working 2-3 jobs, or if I was at my own spot. She would always call me and always tell me, don't waste my life away. She would always tell me that. And some days she'll just show up out in my house without calling, none of that. She'll just show up and say, don't waste your life away, which is why I never really slept. I always had issues with sleeping, so to speak, because I would always stay up probably late at night. I always stayed up late at night. And I would always try to get things accomplished. And so in my mind, I began to think about, like, why am I trying to get all these degrees? Okay, because you all know I'm already a PhD. You already broke down their struggle with that. And I always try to figure out what was I doing all this for. So my excuse that I came up with, well, number one, I love it. Okay, so that's true. That's a true, actual true statement. I do love what I do. I love being a healer. I love helping people. I've always been like that. In customer service, nobody would no outside looking in, like people who know me personally would never have thought that I was good at customer service. I'm excellent customer service. Excellent. You know, every time when I would get a little job, it would always be within the customer service field, and I would always excel at that because I understood people. I understood people's brains and dynamics, and I would always be able to relate with different walks of life, no matter who you was. You could be whomever. You could be like Gandhi or somebody. You could be like the meanest person in the world, and I could always be able to relate with you and work with you. And so for that, I always excelled in that. And I always wanted to help people. So I went through different levels of helping people because I tried the nurse thing, and I told you I got a bad one patient. I had to do an enema for a patient, and I tried to do the enema, and she threw up. I threw up, and she had a bowel movement. I threw up. I didn't have a bowel movement. I thought I was because it was just so gross. So I realized that nursing was not my thing. Okay. And I wanted to be actually like my mother-in-law. And I've shared you all my ex-mother-in-law. I shared with you all that in the past because I really wanted her to love me. I really wanted her to love me. And so in going and really looking at things, again, I kept playing in my mind. You know, I kind of walked around here. I had an appointment this morning, I woke up about 10 a.m. So I had like a 4-hour sleep. Pretty good sleep for me. Pretty good rest for me. And I woke up and I was like, okay, I had a client. I dealt with her, worked with her about an hour. I had a spiritual life coaching session. And so I really began to really start thinking about more. I was like, okay, so why am I really getting all these degrees? So one of the schools that I go to, because y'all know I go to like 3 different schools, okay? So one of the schools I go to, I said, hey, how many credits do I have right now? She was like 6. And I was like, well, how many more credits will I have in getting my master's program? She was like, well, you need to get 15. So I'm already completed with 6, right? So I just need to get, 15. So I was like, cool. And then I was like, okay, so what would be the next level to get my doctorate? She was like, well, you just will need, I think she said to write a paper, to do a dissertation. And I was like, okay. So I would have to do a few more classes plus write dissertation, which I've done before. I figure it, I always figure it out. I'm not really this big writer. I write, but I'm not all that punctuation and grammatical errors and things like that. So I'm not really good with all that, but I know how to get somebody to proofread my stuff, but you'll get my point across, right? Okay, I'm trying to get this to make sure this don't, let me close one of these windows. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so we're in good business. Okay, so and then I emailed the other school that I'm attending. I'm like, okay, so when will I have, how many more classes do I have to take in order to get this particular degree? So I have to do like 8 more modules for this other class, and then it'll be dealing with energy, something or another. I'll be a practitioner in energy, So y'all understand that, I actually, like, again, it goes back to me telling you, not just telling you, but understanding that I know what I'm supposed to be here on this earth. And so that has always been a battle for me and really living it. So again, I asked myself the question, why, God, is this shaking up? It just feels like it's shaking up. I might have to do this just on YouTube and share it on here. But I kept asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to get all these classes done? Why am I cramming all of this stuff into my stuff to make some things happen. Why am I doing all this? What is the point of this? Why am I doing all this? And then I began to think about it. I recall when I graduated high school. I did graduate a bit earlier. I wanted, because number one, I didn't like high school. Number one, I didn't want to deal with all that because I was weird. Well, not that I'm not still weird. I'm still weird, right? I embrace it though now. Back then, it was a bit harder. At any rate, I came back. My mother came back and made me walk across the stage because she wanted to take pictures. So from that, and then when I got my first associate's degree, my mother didn't walk. They just gave me the degree, whatever, and kept it moving. She was mad. So the third one, my third associate's degree, which I barely got that, okay, because it was an information system. She went and she wanted to see me walk across the stage. And she, insisted that I walk across the stage. So I graduated from St. Louis Community College. Okay. So I walked across the stage. She insisted that I did it. She insisted I take a picture. I don't even know what the picture is, where the camera is, or the picture. I'd never seen the picture anymore. Okay. So I graduated, walked across the stage. And then I'm just like, and keep in mind, my mother is a teacher. My mother was a teacher. And when she was here physically. And during her obituary, when they was reading her obituary, I did try to stay in there for that. I don't really like sad music. Sad music makes me sad. Sad spiritual church music makes me sad, unless it's happy and uplifting and things like that. I couldn't say that. But I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel sad because I had already made peace with my mother's transition. Okay, so I already made peace with that. So I didn't want to sit in there and feel sad and feel like ball out and do all that stuff because people were doing that. And I didn't want to do that. Okay, I didn't want to have that emotion because I knew I had made peace with that. Why have that emotion if you already made peace with something? You know what I mean? So from there, I listened to them read her obituary. I can't recall who read it. I kind of zoned out. So as they were reading it, and I remember all the things they listed as far as my mother's accomplishments. And I was like, damn, you know what I mean? I grew up with this woman. This woman raised me, but I didn't realize all of her accomplishments. I didn't realize, but I recall when I was really, really small, like real small, like probably younger than one, probably around 1 to 6 months, 6 months to like 1-ish or something like 2. I don't know. I just remember my father watching me. I remember my father watching me, and I do remember I had a babysitter. And I remember her coming in, because I knew she went to UMSL. And she'll be coming in from UMSL and having classes. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And so I recall that because I remember waiting for her because I wouldn't go to sleep until she got there. Okay? Because I was very attached to her when I was little. And as I was growing up, and I'm sharing this with you, as I was growing up, my mother is a Cancer, and she was very compassionate. And she was the type of mother who would cry with you. You can be somebody else's child. And if you come over to my mother's house, my parents' house, and told my mother your story and what happened to you, because my mother, again, I said she was a school teacher, and she would really be compassionate. I mean, very compassionate. She would cry with you. She would try to resolve your problems. She would go to your mother. She would talk to your mother. She would probably even ask your mother if you can come and stay with us for a little while. My mother has done that with some of her students, and it used to really piss me off because that was the type of mother she is. And then even looking back into when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was in high school, I was my junior year. And my mother would lay in bed with me and hold my stomach, and talk to my daughter. It was just weird. I was just like, why are you doing it? Stop touching me. I don't want to be touched. And so, of course, me being one of those children that just wasn't really emotional, I'm a Taurus. So I'm not really emotionally I'm not really a hugger and things like that. I wasn't really a hugger. And my mother would always want to hug on me, kiss on me. I'm like, ugh. And I had her auntie, her sister, who practically raised her because my grandmother died during a fire or something. So she would always try to hug and kiss on me because she never had any children. Her name was Aunt Curly. And she was very affectionate, very warm, very loving. And I just rejected it. I rejected it because she used to eat a lot of watermelon and she liked watermelon and I didn't like the way watermelon smelled. And to this day, I'll eat watermelon, but I have to be really in a mood. But she was still a sweet person. Anyway, long story short, one day I just told her, I don't want no hug. I don't want no kiss because you kind of smell like watermelon and I don't want that. And my mother got really angry with me, checked me, let me know. And Aunt Kayla said, she don't have to hug me. And my mother made me do it anymore. Okay. So with that said, so I began to, think about why am I doing all this? Yes, my mother sees me spiritually. Yes, I still have communications with my mother. I still feel her love. I still feel her energy connecting to me more so now than I did before. Is that crazy? Yes. So for me, as I was, of course, my father's still here, physically. And of course, me and my father just alike. I'm like daddy's little girl, whether people know it or not. Well, I don't even know if my father knows that. I think it's an unwritten rule where it's not really discussed. I just do what I need to do as a daughter, and that's it. It's just no question. It's no question. If he asks me to be there or do something, I'm going to do it. It ain't no bucket, ain't no talking him crazy. None of that. And I used to talk crazy to my mother coming up, but after a while, when I got older, I stopped, right? So I'm like, why am I rushing to do all of this? Why am I trying to get all these degrees? Why am I trying to, not just about me having a sense of accomplishment, not just me having a sense of helping to heal my clients, because it's not just about that, right? But it's also about me being able to actually make my father proud. Does that make sense? So as a little girl, my father never really was like one of those. And that doesn't make him a bad father, because let me tell you something. What in my childhood, I didn't have bad parents. My parents went through their thing. They had their struggles. They did what they had to do. But my mother, every time my mother was mad at my father or they went through their thing, my mother never allowed me to say anything against my father. My mother would always say, go in there and check on your father. Go in there, check on your father. See how he doing. He just had this operation. He just did this. He just did that. My father was the same way with my mother, no matter what was going on. Even if he was mad at my mother, he would still be like, look, you need to go. Don't you ever talk to your mama like that. You need to go check on her, whatever the case is. My mother would never allow me to bash my father. I don't care what she had going on. My mother never said anything bad about my father. Now, she might have said it to her friends. She might have said that they was married all the way up until she died, which was June the 2nd, 2017. But she always spoke highly of my father. She always talking about my father being an excellent provider, that he was a good person, that he was a strong male, and he had a lot of great things going on about him. No matter what was going on, my mother always maintained an energy of love for my father and always showed me. And every morning before my father would go to work or leave the house, he would always kiss my mother on the cheek, or just a smack kiss, and I always remember that. And I always remember my mother would always tell me I could do anything I wanted to do, set my mind, but I never knew what I wanted to do. So I was a crazy as hell child. I'm not going to lie. I put my parents through a lot of stuff. And I was a problem child in certain instances. But if you ask my mother, a year before she died, she would always say that I wasn't a problem child. She was like, no, you were easy. I was like, what? I was like, are you kidding me? She was like, no, you were nothing like what I saw in my mind and myself. My mother was like, no, you're just going through teenage stuff. You just went through a lot of phases. I mean, that's what it is. I'm like, what? She was like, no, you just went through phases. All children go through that. She's like, sometimes even adulthood, and one day you're going to find yourself. I was like, whoa. And so she was always encouraging. My father would just be like, he was one of them ones like, and I would probably get 1 or 2 hugs and kisses on the cheek from him every blue moon when something tragic would happen or something like that. We weren't really hugged. I probably hugged my father after my mother died or passed. It was really weird And then he called me his baby. So I was like, what is going on? But I'm still, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's still a situation where I still want to make my father proud. I still want my father. I called him and I said, well, Daddy, in March, I had gotten, I became a doctor at that point. And I was like, hey, Dad, I'm not a doctor now. He said, oh boy. That's what he always says. He's like, oh boy. And then he start talking about something else. He's like, okay, you all right? You all right? I'm good. I'm good. I just bought some new rocking chairs. All right, cool. All right, I'll talk to you later. You know what I'm saying? And then there was like a 8-minute conversation, and then we got off the phone. And so it's just a thing where I think I now understand. And then, okay, so let me go back. Let's go back. So yesterday, my daughter calls me, and I want to share this with you. She's a friend of mine on Facebook as well. And she called me. She's like, Mom, I really need you. Not that I'm trying to put a business out there. And I was like, okay, well, she stays around the corner. I said, well, why don't you come over? I don't feel like coming over there. I'm watching some stuff on TV. So she's like, Mom, I really need you. I was like, okay, well, just come on over. And so as I'm thinking this morning or this afternoon, well, now it's heading toward the evening. And so I really began to start really thinking. And I started really thinking about, like, there is always a little girl, or some of us, a little boy, that's within inside of us that always wants to please our parents. Always. They're wanting a need to please our parents, to make our parents proud. No matter what we done did or what we done went through, we always want to make our parents proud. And it's so hard within our community to really express that. I think that a lot of you all I think the youth really get it. But us who are probably 28 and up, I think it's not a customary thing, but the youth really understand about wanting to please their parents or please the person that raised them. No matter how messed up your parents are, no matter what type of childhood you had, your mother could have been on drugs or in the streets or whatever the case is, or father or whatever. We always want to find a way to please our parents. We always want our parents to look at us and say, look what we become, even if we're angry, even if we hold a certain level of contention for our parents, we still want to please them. We still want to make them happy. And I'm going to always, although I'm a grown woman who's 45 years old, who has her own children, who has grandchildren, at the end of the day, I'm going to always want my parents proud of me. Although my mother, is transcended, my father's still here physically, and I feel like my father's stepping up in age. So before he leaves Earth, I want to show him that I actually have done some things, and I'm actually have found who I am and who I'm supposed to be, because he had the pleasure, the beauty to watch me come from this little bitty person who was crying, spitting up, pissing and pooping on myself and on him probably as well, to being the tomboy, playing with him, being his little Clyde, because he used to call me Clyde. And that's another story. And then the same person that my mother used to try to force me to go in the kitchen and learn how to cook and try to feminize me, and used to try to put me on a dress, and I hated it, right? And so that same little girl that liked boys, and my father was like, gross, you like boys, and just hands off, right? And then my mother, who thought that now that I like boys, we was going to have this magical relationship, and she didn't get that magical relationship with me, but the Creator knows exactly what to do. So the Creator blessed her with my daughter, which she had this very good bond with. And I never infringed or hated on that, because I knew that I was more like my father and my mother was more of a femininity. But as I got older, I began to realize that I am like my mother in certain ways. I'm like my father, I'm like my mother. But so that's the beauty. That's the beauty of having these different and unique relationships, and how we can always begin to look at things on a holistic level, and realizing that we all have a part to play in our children's successes. And so, no matter what type of parent you are, because you can have that hard parent, because my father was kind of hard, but he was always there for me. Does that make sense? He might not have been a huggy, kissy, poo parent. My mother was, so it was balanced. But if I call my father, if I call my mother, they was there day one. And my father's still there for me. My daughter could call my father right now. Any of my children can call my father, and my father would be like, hello, yes, what you want, girl? What you want, boy? You know what I mean? But they're still there. And that's one of the things that I am, even as a mother. My grandchildren, my grandson be like, Grandma, can I come over there? My mama's getting on my nerves. Sometimes I let them come and sometimes I won't. It depends. If I think my daughter's trying to manipulate him to do it, I'm like, no. But on some occasions, I will let him come through. If it's something he really needs, or if he really needs something, I'm there. And so the same works with my daughter. And so we have to really understand that sometimes it's so hard to live to certain expectations. My parents didn't really have, at least in my mind, I really didn't feel like my parents ever pushed me. They didn't really have a high level of expectations for me. And that could be good, that could be bad. But and if they did, they never expressed them to me. They always just encouraged me, whatever. It was just to the point where my parents were just happy of the fact that I wanted to do any damn thing. Okay. Not that I didn't do things, because I always was trying to go to school, trying to get a degree, always going through the phase of always trying to better myself. So that aspect about me that they already knew. They already knew I always tried to better myself. I always tried to find myself. I always try to do something better than I did last year, the year before, 2 years, or whatever case is. And so as parents, I know that sometimes we have to, and then my daughter was always one of those types who always felt a certain type of way because I wasn't really an emotional parent, because I wasn't really huggy, kissy, poo-boo her, and she had to really learn how to, my mother helped to balance it out. And she really had to learn that this is just how I love. I love hard, but I love in a different way. So if she pick up the phone and say, hey, I need you, I'm there. You know what I mean? If it's really something, it's not just some old silly stuff. Because sometimes, she's a Pisces, so they can do the silly stuff sometimes. But for the most part, I just began to start thinking about how sometimes we always try to be better. No matter what it is, we're always trying to exceed a certain level of expectations. If it's not our parents that's instilling that in us, or something that we already have in our mind that we want to, excuse me, my nose is running. I told you I burned my eyes. We have to instill a certain pride. We instill certain prides within ourselves because we're culturally traditional, tribal, in that sense of having a pride of always wanting to do something better. Even if it's something negative, we always wanting to do something better, and we're always wanting to strive to grow more. And for me, I had to really think about, why am I, again, it goes back to this question again, why am I trying to get all these degrees during a certain period of time very quickly, understanding, crushing all this information in my head, which I already know like a back. I know it. I just already know it to begin with. Okay. But you all want people to be certified, and the prestige type of thing. And so you shouldn't really want to go to anybody that's not certified anyway, to be honest with you. But at any rate, so there's always been a thing where I always wanted to prove things to my parents. I always wanted to prove things to not only my parents, and now I have grandchildren that's coming along. So I have an expectation for them. My grandson said that he wanted to, where is it at? I gotta look for it. I don't know what I did with it that quick. Oh, here it is. My grandson said that he wanted to get some information about dinosaurs. He wanted to be was it a paleontologist or something? Dinosaur, a doctor in dinosaurs. You don't think I'm not gonna encourage that? I went out and bought this book, and I'm getting ready to buy. By the time he get back home, I'm gonna buy him some more books on how to do it, because he can tell you now, right now, about dinosaurs and what they do and what they like to eat and all kind of stuff. And he just said he's only 10. And again, so I guess there has to be something instilled in him for him already wanting to be on a doctorate level. You understand what I'm saying? He's only 10 and he has autism. So that lets you know that there's something that was engraved in that brain there. There was something that was engraved in that brain. And from my mother, all these accomplishments that she's gotten and done, I didn't even realize. And I've known this woman for 45 years. And I didn't really realize that. I didn't realize all the things that she has and accomplished. And I just saw certain things. I seen that she was a pillar in her community. I seen her help a lot of people and a lot of students. And I seen how a lot of her students will come back to school after she didn't graduate, or come to the house and thank her and bring her money, bring her cards, and bring her beautiful things to tell them that they thank you. And if they were bad, really bad in school, and then they turned out to be a great person, because she was in the school of Western District before they closed it down. And again, you don't understand when you touch other people's lives and how that brings you and what that offers someone else like yourself. And we all have to set a standard. And I'm not talking about something unrealistic. I'm not talking about something that doesn't hold anything. I'm talking about a standard of love. A standard of love, a standard of understanding. And because my parents would check me, don't get it twisted, but my parents were very patient with me on finding myself. And I didn't really find myself until I was in my 30s. And I'm 45 now. Okay? I didn't really find myself. I knew I was going to be a counselor. But I didn't know what I'm doing now. My mother told me what I was going to do. And I never really listened, because I was afraid of my destiny. And so we have to teach our children to stop being afraid of their destiny, and to tell them that they're bigger than what they think they are. And that my mother would always instill that in me. She would always tell me whatever I wanted to do, I could do. But she always saw me as this person, because she would watch me talk to my friends, and she would even ask me about certain things about how my father's relationship was really weird, but that's another story. And I would give her advice on things, and I would always touch her, and she was like, "Well, I feel that," and she's like, "You know what? You don't touch me more often." I don't know, So we have to really start encouraging whatever our children want to do, even if it sounds like it's something so crazy. Even if our children we want to be video gamers, hell, encourage them to do that. Encourage them to do something greater, to exceed their expectations, not just your expectations, but their expectations. And I kept on, and I was okay, this goes back to the Michael Jackson thing. So I was looking at Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson was like, yo, he don't even put his awards in his house, because he always wanted to go above and beyond what he did before. And I was like, damn, that's some cold stuff. He didn't keep them. He had them somewhere. And I just began to start thinking about this, and then my king said this to me. This was like one of the, don't get me wrong. He said something really sweet to me every day when his little self, but he always said certain things to me. But yesterday he said some stuff that was really deep for me. He said that's how you are. He said, you live healing. You breathe it before we go to bed. I'm talking about healing. I'm reading. You can ask him. I'm reading about it. I'm studying for my class, and not just studying, but I'm also perfecting what I do. Okay. Perfecting what I do, talking to a client, working with a client, texting them, letting them know, hey, I'll be there such and such, or hey, you need to do this. Cheer up. We'll schedule tomorrow. Still saying some form of encouragement, still working and rocking and still being great, still working 24 hours a day and trying to do this, because this is some deep stuff. This is not just in the healing aspect. This is not just no stuff that you just do part-time. Either you're going to do it full-time or you're going to do it, you're going to play, or you either going to play with it or you ain't going to get nowhere with it. You're not going to do nothing if you're just doing it part-time. You are either real or you fake, and there's just no way around it. And so we have to instill this great pride in our children. And sometimes we do have to give them that hard love. My father gave me that hard love. He loved me. Oh my God, he loves me. And yeah, that's good. But then when he was in the hospital one time, I went there and he was like, yeah, this is my nurse. But he was talking to one of the nurses. He's like, this is my daughter. And I looked at him and I seen this pride in his face. And I looked, I was like, who is that? What's that? And I seen a pride in his face and how proud I felt like he was of me. And I seen it in that moment. And what we have to do is really, 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 even if we don't say, hey, child, I think you're great or exceptional, we have to show them in our pride and our conversation that somehow we are proud of them. Even if we tell somebody else and that person tells that somebody else, we have to show some kind of energy for that child to be something great. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for, it's not just my parents that gave me the inspiration to be who I am today or who I'm going to be, because I'm not done yet. I'm still going. But it was my children. It was my children who offered that unconditional love. And they'd be like, yo, mama, what, and it wasn't just my children, it was my king who kept on, who made it so where I can do certain things, who pushed me in a certain direction, or go ahead and get that class done. What you waiting on? You got to finish that class. I mean, you got a client, you got to do this client today, you got to do this and this and that. And so, and grandchildren, my grandson was like, Grandma, I'm going to take this picture. One time I was like, I need to do some advertisement. That boy hopped up under my pyramid and said, and put his hands together. I'm like, where did he learn that from? He was like, my chakras, I'm healing my chakras. And he said, take the picture, hurry up. And I took the picture. I'm like, dang, you know what I'm saying? So our babies are watching us. And if you're a grandmother, our grandchildren are watching us. So understand that we have to take our lives to a new level. We have to exceed our own expectations. While we're expecting our child to be greater than us, we got to be greater than we think we are. And it's never too late to do that. So this message is for, I said it was for the daughters. And I begin to think about it's for the sons too. So anyway, just want to share my message with you. Grow, think, expand, and do.